I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. At Tuesday's Senate Banking Committee hearing, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was questioned by Senator Bill Hagerty. The Tennessee Republican questioned her about the publishing of confidential taxpayer information by ProPublica. Hagerty pressed Yellen on the status of the investigation into the leaks that have seen private IRS tax data published online. Yellen acknowledged the disturbing nature of the leaks and gave an update on the investigation. Hagerty asked if there was a plan in place to prevent another leak of similar magnitude from occurring in the future. Let's watch the Treasury Secretary's response.
Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Toomey. Thank you very much for holding this hearing. Secretary Yellen, good morning to you. Secretary Yellen, you and I have talked about this before. In fact, the past 2 times you've appeared before this committee, I've talked with you about the confidential taxpayer information that ProPublica has been publishing. Each time I asked you for an update on the source of the leaks and the investigation that's underway to get to the bottom of that. The prior 2 meetings that we had, you were not able to update me, so I want to ask you now, more than a year has passed since the leaks of confidential taxpayer information have begun by ProPublica. Can you tell me, can you update this committee, the American people, on where you are with respect to the investigation in terms of the source of the leaks of confidential taxpayer information and how it continues to be published?
Senator, I really wish I could update you. I really am anxious to see some results here as well. I regret that I'm not able to do so. There are investigations that are ongoing by law enforcement agencies and also by the inspector generals. I respect these are independent investigations as is appropriate, and I certainly respect the authorities of these independent investigators to complete their work. I have not seen any information on what is being found, and I am eager to see it just as you are.
I'm sure it must be every bit as disturbing to you, if not more so, given your role. But millions of taxpayers are still required to give their confidential information to the IRS. And in the face of these leaks and the publication of this information in ways that may be perceived as perhaps partisan, it could be hacking, we don't know, but it creates a great amount of mistrust among the American people. And I encourage you to do everything within your power, Madam Secretary, to encourage this investigation to come to a conclusion, to get some results for the American people, certainly for this committee. I agree with you, it is quite disturbing. And going forward, do you have a plan in place? Are you working on a plan to make certain that this type of leak doesn't happen again?
Well, we have done everything within our power to make sure that there's not inappropriate access to such data. For example, there are some pieces of Treasury that, for very good reasons based on their work, have access to this information, to individual taxpayer information. And we've asked our own Inspector General to make sure that the controls that exist wherever that information is available are appropriate and working. And he's reported that he's looked into it and that's not an issue, that the controls are adequate and are working. So that's the kind of thing we can do to make sure there's nothing in our structure that could create an opportunity for leaks. The IRS Inspector General is also examining similar issues within IRS. I couldn't agree with you more. This is very damaging. I absolutely want this work to be done and to figure out how this happened.
Thank you for your efforts on this. And again, the controls have obviously failed in the past because the leaks have occurred. However they occurred, I hope we'll get to the bottom of it, and I hope whoever did it will be made an extreme example of so that this never happens again.
I agree with you, Senator.
I'd like to turn to another point. Last month, the Department of Treasury released the one-year progress report on what the department calls its Equity Action Plan. On page 7, Treasury details its efforts to advance racial equity, including through IRS enforcement. I find the notion troubling that Treasury should potentially structure its policies with any particular group of Americans in mind, rather than advancing economic opportunity for all Americans, regardless of their race or gender. So, Secretary Yellen, could you elaborate on what specific plans Treasury may be pursuing or contemplating pursuing regarding racial equity in IRS enforcement?
Well, so we simply want to make sure that there's nothing unintentional in techniques of enforcement used by the IRS that could result in unintentional discrimination. It's possible we certainly can see, for example, that in in the conduct of enforcement that there might be undue attention to certain kinds of issues that could unfairly discriminate by race, and we want to make sure that that isn't occurring. So that's part of our racial equity program.
I hope you can assure us that there will not be people targeted based on their race or gender or anything of that nature. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator.